Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living, and my pronouns are he, him.
My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
Yeah, you are.
I am.
We got to do it every episode, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a thing.
On this week's show, we're going to talk about 3 movies. But before I mention what those movies are, I just want to call your attention to our Patreon exclusive audio this week. This week, we're talking about the 2011 horror film You're Next, a film that we've all been wanting to talk about for quite some time. So we had a lot of fun talking about it. And hopefully it's a lot of fun to listen to. And you can check that out by going to patreon.com/spoilerpiece. You can sign up to become a patron and you get exclusive audio every week, like this week's episode. You also get access to a back catalog of, I'd say, almost 200
It's a lot.
mini episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite the archive. So definitely check that out. In terms of movies for this week, we're going to be talking about Till Death, Knocking, the highly anticipated Dune.
I love that you're laughing about that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why.
I mean, no, it is. I mean, it's highly anticipated movie.
I know. I was highly anticipating it. You are correct, sir.
Yes. But I feel like it's been like a combination of like mostly film nerds like us. They're like, yes, Dune. Like there's definitely people who are like hardcore, like excited about it. So I don't know. That's kind of why I laughed. I feel like it has a very like cult following, that excitement. I feel like you either kind of know Dune or you don't. There's not much in between. But we're not going to talk about that first. That's going to be our main event, since that's the big movie for this week. We're going to start with Till Death, which is a Netflix film. It's directed by S.K. Dale and written by Jason Carvey, and it stars Megan Fox. And I will read the one-sentence plot summary on IMDb. A woman is left handcuffed to her dead husband as part of a sick revenge plot. Yeah.
Truth.
Unable to unshackle. She has to survive as 2 killers arrive to finish her off. Not really 2 killers. It's more like 1 killer and an inept brother.
Who doesn't really want to do.
Yeah.
Very reluctant about the killing.
He's been misled about why they're there, and he doesn't really want to do any killing. He just wants money because he's like a thief. He's
Right.
not a killer. So, yes, that is a very brief summary, but to kind of expand that out a little bit. Megan Fox plays Emma. She is married to Mark, played by Ian Mackin, and he's a hotshot attorney. He's like a partner at his own law firm, and she's been having an affair with one of the other people who works at the law firm. We meet them. It's their anniversary, their 11th wedding anniversary, and he's doing all these things to be like, oh, so I know our relationship's not great, but like I'm trying to be all romantic. And then they have, this night where he drives her out to their remote lake house as like, ooh, look, it's a surprise. And then when she wakes up in the morning, he has a gun in his hand and shoots himself in the head. And that's when she realizes that she's handcuffed to him after he's dead. So after that, it's a lot of like dragging his corpse around the house while she tries to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, the house is empty of all like sharp objects. There's no like knives or anything in the kitchen. There's nothing in the basement. He's siphoned the gas out of their car. Then the guy she's having an affair with, Tom, who's played by Amin, shows up. And then these 2 guys show up. One of them is a guy that tried to rob her once upon a time and
stabbed her,
but she stabbed him in the eye with her keys.
Right.
So there's beef there. And so he's come to get his revenge because he's been hired by her ex-husband to kill her and supposedly get some diamonds that are left in the safe that only she as in Megan Fox, and he, as in Mark, the husband, know the combination to and can open. So
Yeah. That's actually a significant amount of plot for a movie that's about 80 minutes long, if you don't count the credits.
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's fairly involved revenge plot on the shitty I'm gonna call him ex-husband now. Shitty ex-husband part. It's fucked up. And we also find out that he's kind of like, he's pissed about the affair, but also he has like federal prosecutors closing in on him for some I don't remember exactly what his crimes were, but it's kind of like dual purpose. Like, you know what? I'll off myself, not get caught, have to deal with that, and get revenge on my wife. So
yeah,
biffity boppity boom.
And her lover, because as Megan Fox says when he shows up, do you really think that he like left clues for you to come out here to rescue me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do we think of this movie?
Well, I think it took its time getting, there's a lot of setup, but once it gets going, it gets going. And I thought it was really smart of her to use her wedding dress to drag her husband around the house.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was really smart. Yeah, basically using it as like a sled of sorts to pull him around.
Yeah.
I dug that.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this once it got going. I thought that the opening, that Megan Fox, I think that Ian Mackin is, I don't know if I've seen him in anything before. I probably have, because I'm looking at his like list of credits and it's pretty extensive. But I thought he was kind of crummy in the part. I just was like, just sort of like boilerplate, shitty, misogynist husband. And you know, the whole, I thought you were gonna wear the red dress, and it's just like, these guys. And of course the fact that he ends up dead, great. That he did it by his own hand, he couldn't have gotten offed by someone else, that's kind of a bummer. But and I didn't think that Megan Fox, I mean, I think that part of the reason she's so what's the word I'm looking for, not reserved, but at the beginning
restrained.
Yes, she's restrained. It's like she's placid almost in the beginning of the movie, but I think that's because I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, I don't love my husband anymore. He's a fucking douche, and my life is shit, and this is my anniversary, and I don't want to be here. So everything is just in this kind of monotone, whatever. But then once she has to start dragging his body around and, you know, fending off these two goons, she really amps up she does well with the you know, hiding under the car and hiding in the boat and surprised face and, you know, yelling fuck at the right times.
Yeah, I really think that horror is Megan Fox's genre. I think she's great in comedy. I think she's great in action, but I think any kind of horror elements or thriller elements, I think that's really where she shines. And I agree with you, Dave. I really like when she's fending off the killers, and I think she's great. I think she's great in everything. I think she's great in this. And for me, that's why I liked this, because I like her so much and it really hinges on her performance. I want to speak to what you said about how she's placid and so restrained. And I do think, I agree with you that I think it's because of her shitty marriage. I think it's a step beyond that, though. I think it's a survival tactic because her husband is not just shitty and a misogynist, which he 100% is. It's very clear that he is abusive, like very clear that he's emotionally abusive and manipulative and controlling.
For sure.
And so that's a survival tactic, I feel like, on her part, to be as kind of docile as possible and quiet as possible so she doesn't incur even more manipulation and control and his wrath.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
I co-sign that 100%. Yeah. Yep.
But I do agree with you, Dave. It's for me, I felt like the opening minutes of the movie were kind of sleepy, for lack of a better word, especially in the build up to the suicide. But once it gets into that, I feel like I got into this. I enjoyed Megan Fox's performance. I think there are times where I feel like the movie is kind of dumb, but I enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's just dumb stuff. Like, I don't know. when she's like trying to escape toward the end, and her thought is, you know what? Instead of going towards land, I'm going to go on the ice. I'm like, why? You're barefoot. Like, this is a horrible idea. Like, nothing good can come from this. It's just, I don't know, like, especially like later when she falls into the ice. Like, I don't know. There's certain things that I think, that's kind of dumb, but I enjoyed it anyway because Megan Fox is really enjoyable in this. And it's tense. Like it creates great tension, use of the space of the house and places that she hides, and her running in and out of the house to trick the two guys that are after her. That's fun. Seeing her figure out ways to drag this corpse around and then eventually free herself from it by using an anchor on the boat in the boathouse to cut off
a couple of his fingers to make it smaller.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I enjoyed her ingenuity. It definitely had a Die Hard-ish type quality, especially the whole like not having shoes thing for a good portion of it. So yeah, I mean, I liked this movie overall, but I felt like watching it, I was like, there's some stuff in here that's like, it doesn't make sense, or it's just kind of stupid. But it's Megan Fox really does carry it through, and she's a lot of fun to watch in this.
Yeah, it's a good use of its like low budge sort of roots or whatever. It's mostly one location, the house, which is not as big as the ex-husband, to use Evan's phrase, is supposed to be a rich hotshot lawyer type, and they do a lot with a very little space in this movie. They go to the attic, there's the bedroom, there's the basement, there's the boathouse, the garage, and it's all just and there's a lot of good zipping the camera around to weird places to like cover as much space as they can, it seems like. Also, I loved that scene when she was cutting off her husband's fingers and she had to duck into the boat. I don't know it just made me laugh in a good way. It's like she's finally getting free, and she's like, the dipshit brother comes in, she's like, damn it, and she jumps under the tarp.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about this in the Patreon episode, but like, I mean, in horror movies, it's always frustrating when you see the person have an opportunity to finish the bad guy off and to not, like, a perfectly good opportunity to make sure he doesn't get up and then not take that opportunity. Like when she's in the attic and she hits him with the golf club and he falls through the floor. And it's like, there's a perfect opportunity there to just make sure he's not going to get up again. And it's like, no, I'm just going to keep running. I'm going to try and get outside to a car that's sandwiched between two other cars. Like, what are you thinking? Like, you're not going to get out of there in that.
Yeah. In her defense, though, I mean, who knows how any of us would react in a situation like that. I mean, I'm not sure I could finish. Maybe she just is the kind of person who can't kill someone with a golf club. She can maim someone with a golf club, but she can't kill someone with it. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I also appreciate that the brother, the let's call him the dipshit brother, is super reluctant about this thing the whole time and never changes. He doesn't he's not won over like in a lot of movies. Like the whole even pulls a gun on his brother, which he finds under this is kind of a nice little thing in the screenplay that plays well in the movie, is when the ex-husband shoots himself in the head, Megan Fox picks up the gun to try to shoot the chain off, and there was only one. It's a revolver with 6 shots, but he only had 1 bullet in the gun. So when the brother picks up the gun later, she knows that it's empty, but the brother doesn't. And I really like that came back around, and that the brother, like I was saying before, didn't want to be a part of this the whole time, and actually dipshit brother turns gun on older brother, whose eye healed quite nicely, by the way.
Yeah. I assumed it would either be missing or he'd have a glass eye or something, but it seemed like he was still fully functional.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a glass eye.
Maybe. But I mean, that's a good looking glass eye, if, no Peter Falkisms here.
Well, maybe because of the low budget, they couldn't, make it look more like a glass eye.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I just want to speak to the physicality of Megan Fox's role. She actually dragged around the stuntman who played the dead husband. Like, that's amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah. That guy looked like he was in pretty good shape and probably had a lot of dense muscle.
But like the fact, like I just assumed that she was not dragging a person. No, she really is dragging a full person. Like that's wow. Good for her.
Yeah, she committed for sure
Yes.
to this part. I mean, that's one of the things I think she doesn't get credit for is however you feel about her, she fucking commits, you know?
Yeah.
Like she's serious about this stuff, which I think, I don't know why, I don't know, maybe because she got her start in Transformers that people don't take her seriously, or I don't know. But I like
it's sexism.
Well, there's that too, more than anything. But I've always liked Megan Fox. We talked about Jennifer's Body a few months ago, and she's so terrific in that. With the comedy and the horror. So, yeah.
She really is.
I loved her reaction, by the way, when her husband's gray matter and blood splashed all over her face. It's just like, I don't know what I was thinking was going to happen, but I didn't think there was going to be that. I guess I thought it was going to be like on the wall. Oh, no. On the wall, yes, but also
on her.
Also on her. And I was like, eee.
That is a jarring scene. Like, even though you know it's coming, it's still jarring. And I really liked the execution of that.
Execution. Haha.
Yes, that was intentional.
Unintentional. Noted. Yeah. And I mean, and her character was even better at giving an anniversary present than his character when he gives her that steel necklace, which we later learn has diamonds in it, I guess.
Yeah.
She gives him tickets to the Super Bowl because it's their Steel anniversary, and she was hoping that the Steelers would be there. And like the prick that he is, he leaves the Super Bowl tickets as a tip for the server.
Right.
By the way, no cash tip.
Well,
Here,
he may have
take
paid
these
with
Super
credit
Bowl
card
tickets.
and also put a tip. Who knows? Probably not. But the other thing that I think was a kind of a failing here is when the boyfriend shows up at the lake house the next day and actually raises some good points and is like, you know,
Yes.
you washed your husband's like blood and brains all over off your face, and she's like, yeah, but thinking like a lawyer. But I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, the whole idea that, you know, he says that the night before they raided the office, the FBI raided the office, and they're going through things, and it's like nobody had eyes on the husband. Nobody in the federal government had eyes on the husband and arrested him outside the restaurant or in the restaurant. Okay, sure, but you forgive these things, and you know sometimes.
No, but that is kind of glaring, especially because not only does the boyfriend raise the great questions and issues to her, but also when he goes outside and is pretending that nobody's in the house and he's talking to the inept brother, and the guy's like, oh, you know, we came here to fix the pipe, and oh, I've been driving, you know, from Buffalo, and oh, can I use your bathroom? And he like rattles off all these reasons. Like he's already noticed the plates. He already like noticed, like he's noticed and observed everything. So he's very, very sharp. So the film is very sharp in certain ways, but not in other ways. So yeah, it does become a little more glaring.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought of the juxtaposition of how it's smart in some ways and not in other ways. But yeah. Well, you know, hey, maybe screenwriter Jason Carvey will get it right next time.
Maybe. Did we have anything else we wanted to say about Till Death, or should we move on to Knocking?
Just that Megan Fox should be in more things, and I think she's great.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that one too. That's my phrase tonight.
I know. I love that you're co-signing so much.
I'll add my signature to the ballot or the I don't know, survey. I'm not really sure what we're talking about anymore. Let's talk about Knocking. So Knocking is directed by Frida Kempf and written by Emma Brostrom.
They're Swedes. Who knows how it's pronounced?
And it's based on a novel.
Right. In Swedish.
Based on a novel by Johan Theorin. Let's say that's how you
based on a
pronounce
novel. I didn't realize that.
Based on a novel, Push by Sapphire.
No, but the novel is Knox.
Sorry, it was too easy. And let's see what the one sentence IMDb plot summary is here. A woman leaves a psychiatric ward after a nervous breakdown, only to start hearing mysterious knocking sounds in her apartment. Yeah.
That is true.
That is true. yeah, we find out through kind of flashbacks that our main character, Molly, who's played by Cecilia Maloko, she's recovering from the trauma of losing her partner. And it is pretty traumatic. She and her partner were at the beach. Her partner gets up to go for a swim, and when Molly wakes up, her partner has drowned. And everyone on the beach is like, I don't know what they're standing around looking at the drowned woman or what. It's not super clear based on the flashbacks, but we know that Molly's partner died, and so she had a nervous breakdown, understandably, by the way. It's pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And when she arrives at this new apartment building and tries to settle into some type of sense of normalcy, she hears knocking and disturbing sounds coming from upstairs. And so the central kind of like point to the movie is, is this in Molly's mind? What's going on? Or is there something really nefarious going on? And since the spoiler piece turns out a little bit of both, like a little bit of like, there's some things going on with Molly, but ultimately there is nefarious things going on in her building. And so a lot of the film is like her processing grief, trying to kind of sift through reality versus things that she's imagining, either due to mental health issues or medication. I feel like there's times where it's not clear whether the medication might be causing some of these hallucinations. And then also the shitty people in her building who are gaslighting her about what's going on. Did I miss anything?
It seems like a lot of people in on the gaslighting, if they're gaslighting. Like,
oh, they're gaslighting.
No, they are. They
Yeah,
are.
for sure.
But that was one of the things that I was like, all of these people are in on it? I thought this was an effective slow burn. I'll put it that way. And it ends up with a real burn. I just didn't even think of that.
Yes,
the
it
apartment
does.
building goes up in flames.
Conflagration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then that's what turns out to be interesting is she was right that there was someone being held captive upstairs. It's just not who you thought it was. It turns out that the super in the building was holding a woman captive, and the fire was how they found her up there.
Right.
Although I have to say there is a pretty good fake out in the movie. Well, not entirely a fake out, but you there's this guy upstairs and he seems kind of creepy, and I don't know what his deal is, but he just looks creepy, seems creepy, kind of shifty. And she's certain that the knocking is coming from his apartment, so she storms into his apartment, grabs like a bayonet off the wall because he's clearly like an ex-army guy, and ends up cutting one of her neighbors, but then storms into this room where his elderly mother is there, and she's been knocking and crying for help because she's in the room and she's confused, and he keeps her locked in there. So it's like you have that and you're like, okay, well maybe that was the knocking. Nope, that's not the knocking.
There's so much knocking going on. I mean, who could blame? Nah. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it except, like I said, effective slow burn, good performances.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think smart choice not to show in its entirety the traumatic incident that lands, for which she has the nervous breakdown. Because, I don't know, effective, and also an effective use of all of the different shots you see of her sleeping and then light like flashing on her face. I thought that was very cool. Yeah,
no, I really liked how... I like the lights flashing. I like that too. I like how it's kind of filmed erratically to reify you questioning her state of mind and what's reality. So yeah, no, I liked that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mostly really liked this movie. I think performances are great. Our main character, Molly, is compelling. I think her struggle to kind of parse through what's real in this situation and what's hallucination. Like we see her, she hallucinates somebody jumping off the building across the way, and that doesn't happen, and it seems like she might have hallucinated her doctor or calls from her doctor. So I think that's compelling, and I think Cecilia Maloko is great in this. I think my major complaint with the movie, though, is for an hour and 18 minutes, I feel like the movie is just so slow. And I'd seen this movie at Sundance, and I feel like I had the same complaint rewatching it. It's just so, for me, it was just so slow. And for an hour and 18 minutes, I don't think a movie should feel as slow as it felt to me watching it, because it kind of grinds along. And there's good stuff in there. I just feel like there's so many scenes where she's kind of like, we see her go to the store to buy fruit, and there's some like patronizing guy there, like haranguing her about whether she's going to eat all the fruit because it's hot and it's not going to last long. Like, I think there's definitely some value add to scenes like that, but I feel like for me, it's kind of dragged. It does have a compelling ending though. So like, for me, it's a mixed bag. I like it, but one of the major issues is like, I have a hard time sitting through it.
So I was totally fine with the pacing, and I actually didn't find it slow. And I also saw it at Sundance too, and I really liked this. I also think that this really ratchets up the intensity emotionally. So even if there's not a lot necessarily happening on screen narratively, there's a lot happening internally with her. And for me, I found that interesting and compelling enough where I was okay that there was not a lot of other things happening per se. So I totally see why you found this way too slow, Evan. I didn't have the same experience. I had a very different experience. I found this a very frustrating experience watching it, and intentionally so, because it is so frustrating, because so often there are so many ableist depictions of people on screen, quite often women.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ableism that runs rampant in our society, and people who struggle with mental health issues are not taken seriously. So it was kind of frustrating in that way, but it's intended to be that way. And it really is playing with this notion of, is she reliable? Is she not? What's going on? And I think it does that very effectively. I love that she's a queer woman. I always like that. It's a bonus. So I really enjoyed it. And I really do think that this film showcases gaslighting to such an extreme level. But it really does put you in her shoes and really feels immersive, that she feels like she's losing her grasp on reality, because that is how you feel when you're being gaslighted. So I think it's done really, really effectively.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the movie is very effective in that regard, in making comments about gaslighting, and from the neighbor's perspective and the police too, because after she starts calling about this knocking, they just stop taking her seriously. I think after basically one attempt to contact the police for help, and they're saying things to her like, oh, if you call again, we're going to disconnect your phone. You're going to be in trouble for making false reports. And she goes into the station later, and they give her a hard time. And so they end up apprehending her at some point later again. And like, she ends up escaping and going back to her apartment. But that's also a scary situation.
It's also a scathing commentary on police too.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So I agree. I think that aspect of the movie is really effective. And like I said, I like it. Like, I like the movie overall. I just wish it wasn't such a grind to get to the parts that I did really like.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair. I also just want to say that in the production of this, the making of it, I really liked a lot of the cinematography. Like, I know Dave, we just both said, but I thought it was interesting because in the interview at Sundance, Freda Kempf said because it was such a low budget film, they couldn't afford camera rigs. So the DP built them out of what he had in his basement. And I thought that was just really cool. I was like, ooh, love that ingenuity.
Yeah. The old shopping cart dolly or skateboard dolly, stuff like that.
Yeah. But there's some great shots in this. So so that made me appreciate them even more.
I liked the juxtaposition too of the flashback scenes with such bright, vivid colors, and everything kind of inside the building, and in Molly's present day having this kind of like sad, kind of dark look to it. It feels very somber, but also I feel like it puts you in her kind of frame of mind, trying to recover from what's happened to her.
Yeah, you feel her grief, you feel trapped, all of that.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything else we want to say about Knocking? I know it's kind of short, which I feel like that condenses the conversation, perhaps, unless there's stuff you feel like we haven't covered.
I'm all set.
Me too.
All right. So then that leaves plenty of time to talk about Dune.
Dune Part 1. Let's make that clear.
Oh, is
that
it?
Is correct. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So now I know.
It's kind of like how people actually, this comes up right at the beginning after you see like the Warner Brothers and Legendary. The first thing you see is like Dune Part 1. You're like, oh, Part 1. But it's kind of like how at the end of it was like Chapter 1. It was like, wait a minute. I kind of figured though that because this is 2.5 hours long, how are they possibly going to fit this novel into 2.5 hours? They couldn't do it in 2 hours and 17 minutes in 1984. So how are they going to do it in 2 hours and 35 minutes? You know?
Not if you're doing it, not if you're adapting it effectively.
Right.
And really capturing the essence of the book, which is exactly what Denis Villeneuve wanted to do.
Yeah, I unfortunately haven't read the novel since I was about 11 or 12, so I don't really remember it. I do remember David Lynch's Dune very much, and it was interesting while watching this to think about just the differences in like how a lot of the scenes are the same, not the same, but what's the thing, the little killer Megan called that comes through the wall? What's that thing called?
Oh, fuck.
But everybody who's seen Dune will know what that is. It's this little like, needle that flies through the air. It looks like an insect in this version.
The Hunter Seeker.
Like that scene is in David Lynch's Dune. It's in this Dune. And they're both
the Gom Jabbar in the box, that scene,
the hand in the box,
and the pain. Yeah, the Bene Gesserit test. That's it. Actually, we should probably back up and give.
I was just about to say that
because I was just thinking. I was like, Evan probably doesn't know what we're talking about, and if you don't know Dune, if you're not familiar at all, you probably have no clue what we're talking about.
Right? Yeah. Let's back up a hair. So we know this is written and directed by Denis Villeneuve. It's co-written by John Spates, Eric Roth, and it's based on the novel Dune by Frank Herbert, which you both just mentioned. This is not obviously the first adaptation of Dune. We have David Lynch's Dune. We have Sci-Fi did a miniseries adaptation of it, right? And is there any other adaptations I'm forgetting about?
No, but there are multiple cuts of Lynch's film.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like there's an extended, like a very extended cut of his film too.
Which he does not endorse.
No.
Interestingly
he
enough.
does not. Well, he doesn't really endorse the film anyway because he didn't get final cut. So
yeah. But
it does feel almost in some ways like a different film, the longer cut.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's not technically a different film, but it kind of feels like a different film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Megan, maybe you should give the description because I think you're more familiar with the story than I am.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I have seen all the adaptations and I've read the book too. I know you have too, Dave. Yeah, so Dune is a massive sci-fi epic, very massive in scope, very dense, very complex, all about political machinations, all about power grabs, dynastic families, and pretty much there are these families that are vying for control. There's an emperor who is in charge, and there's a lot of behind the scenes machinations to depose the emperor or to grab control elsewhere. And everyone wants this ingredient called the spice, the melange spice. In the film, they just call it the spice, which only is on the desert planet Arrakis. And the reason people want it is because it extends life, although they don't really talk about that in this film adaptation, but it extends life. And the main reason is to help with precognitive abilities for the Bene Gesserit, which are an order of women who have supernatural strength and they can control their bodies perfectly and they have visions, and also to travel through space. And there's a space guild and they need the spice in order to travel through space. That's the only way that they can do it is through the spice. So it is the most valuable commodity in this world, this universe. And Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, is the protagonist, and his father, Duke Leto, who is played by Oscar Isaac, is going to be the guardian of Arrakis. And it's basically all a ruse in order to overthrow the House Atreides. And so it's about that. And it's about Paul and his visions, because his mother, Lady Jessica, is a member of the Bene Gesserits. And she has been training Paul, which is technically illegal because you're only supposed to train women in this order. But she has been training Paul in the order of the Bene Gesserit. So he has a lot of abilities that they do, like the voice, which you can control people through the use of the quote, the voice. So yeah, so it's about that. So very epic in scope, a lot of politics.
Yeah.
A lot of battles.
Sounds like it.
And
Yeah.
I have to say, I've never been clear why the Emperor wants to overthrow the House Atreides, considering the House Harkonnen is evil, and it would make more sense to get rid of them. But hey, whatever.
There is a reason. I can't remember why, but there is like more of a reason. But yeah, but if your only experience is just watching this, it is kind of like, why would that be? But
yeah, I'm interested for the second part. If should they ever make it, that it's still not clear whether they will.
That's true. It seems like they will make it, and especially the fact that they put that in the credits that it's part one, but it is not a complete done deal.
Yeah.
Dune will
I mean,
return.
it's making a decent amount of money in box office so far. So, but Megan, what did you think?
So I thought this was great. So I have to say that I love David Lynch's Dune. Like, it is campy, it is weird, it is bonkers. It is sometimes terrible, sometimes brilliant. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I also like the Dune sci-fi miniseries. I love the book. So I was really excited because I love Denis Villeneuve. And I love this cast. I think Rebecca Ferguson is a perfect Lady Jessica. I think Zendaya as Chani is great. Love Oscar Isaac. I don't love Timothée Chalamet. I mean, he's fine.
Yeah.
But I think as Paul, he's kind of the perfect Paul because, and the film kind of does something this film does something a little bit interesting and slightly different. But Paul, so it really is a white savior narrative and a Messiah complex. But as the books go on, it really is a massive critique of the white savior narrative and a Messiah and of religion. So I think the fact that Timothée Chalamet is in this role is really kind of fascinating. Yeah, and I also love the change in the opening. Rather than Princess Irulan and her epigraphs in the novel and in the film, in the extended cut of the film, of the 1984 film, she narrates and kind of gives a lot of exposition and background. I think it's really great to have the film open with Chani's narration and talking about Arrakis, talking about the beauty of her planet, talking about colonialism of the Harkonnens. Like, I think it's fantastic because the film immediately centers her and the people. Even though Paul is the protagonist, it immediately centers racism and oppression of indigenous peoples. And I think that is a really fascinating thing. And I also think that's really true to the spirit of the novel because spice is, an allegory for oil. This very much was Frank Herbert talking about the Middle East. And so it makes sense that Denis Villeneuve would take that and run with that and want to talk about indigenous peoples and racism and colonialism. And it's, it kind of makes sense because so many of the Fremen that we encounter are people of color. So, but I love that too. I love the score, Hans Zimmer, great score.
It is a good score.
No surprise there.
Do love Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Oh, he's great. Love the cinematography, love the visuals. This was really a spectacle. It was a visual and auditory feast. I thought it was great.
Interesting.
What about you, Dave?
I
What'd
really
you think?
enjoyed it. I did. I think this story lends itself to taking itself very seriously. So the movie is like, this is a fucking serious movie. Although it does have levity in it. Just Jason Momoa showing up at all, there's going to be some jokes. And he actually seems at points like he's in a different movie. But
I would say in a good way. I don't know if you feel that way.
I think it adds much needed levity. And I think that he has such a, he's really gifted at being kind of an imposing dude, but with a very light touch.
Yes.
And so
he has like such a natural ease in this film.
Yeah. And he also feels he's comfortable in his role.
Yes.
His character.
His name is Duncan Idaho.
Yes.
Yes.
Why is that weird?
It seems weird in comparison to some of the other character names in this. As I'm looking through, I'm just like, it seems like Duncan Idaho is so much like more plain of a name than everyone else has. Kind of like these royal titles, and over here you got Duncan Idaho.
Yeah.
Well, he's not royalty, so
Yeah, there's that too. I really thought that the Paul's brooding. I just kind of, I don't love Timothy Chalamet cast in this. Like when I originally heard that, I was like,
I hear you.
For all of the things that I don't like about David Lynch's movie. I mean, I just love Kyle MacLachlan in that part.
So great.
And it was interesting to see how they played the box scene, Kyle MacLachlan versus Timothy Chalamet. And it's actually, really, I thought it was a really smart, it's very different, or at least his portrayal is different. The Bene Gesserit's Charlotte Rampling, by the way. I was like watching this going like, wait a minute, is that fucking Charlotte Rampling? And it is.
You bet your ass it is.
Yeah. I was just like, I think that's Charlotte Rampling. And then I don't know at what point it became clear to me that it was her. It's like, that's why there's so much instant gravitas to this performance.
Oh, she's fantastic.
But I think that Timothy Chalamet played it the right way, which is totally different from from Kyle MacLachlan, who is the thing that I always remember is the pain,
which actually is not, again, and this is one of the big problems with that some people have with Lynch's version, is that it's so different than what the book intended, which of course books and movies should be able to stand on their own. And I always say that, but the whole point is that he's supposed to be showing restraint and that he can control himself. And he's not doing that there, but yes, right. Timothy Chalamet is.
I've kind of, I don't know why. I think it's because of Star Wars that I've kind of gone lukewarm on Oscar Isaac, but damn it, if he isn't good in this part.
Oh, he's so good.
Just the kind of the right tone of, you just feel like he's a guy walking a tightrope, which he is. But in the most humanist way possible, because he makes it clear that he doesn't want to go to Arrakis. He's been assigned there by the Emperor. He doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to exploit the Fremen. He wants to make an alliance with the Fremen. And of course the machinations to get him killed were in the works all along, but it's a good performance. And of course, we can't forget Rebecca Ferguson, who I don't think we've talked about yet.
I mentioned that she's the perfect Jessica.
She's the fucking perfect Jessica. She's so good.
Rebecca Ferguson is so fantastic at picking interesting roles. Like even in films that are not good, she is always bringing her A game.
Yeah. Too little Javier Bardem. Too little Zendaya, but I mean, that's because of the way the movie is structured.
Yeah, Zendaya will be the protagonist or the co-protagonist in the next one.
And, I didn't love Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron Harkonnen. That's one of those casting choices that I just kind of feel like, I use this phrase on this show all the time, just so on the nose. I would have really appreciated somebody like super different in that role, like someone you wouldn't expect.
I agree.
And
with
it's
you.
like, when Dave Bautista shows up as his like henchman, it's like, well, of course Dave Bautista is his fucking henchman. Of course he is. I mean, look at him.
Yeah.
Very fitting.
That adds up. And I haven't seen it, but it adds up.
And so one thing I will say though is this for all of our ASMR fans out there, a lot of unintentional ASMR in this movie, or at least I experienced. When I was watching
I saw you Instagram that. I was like, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, if you don't experience ASMR, then
that's true, which I don't.
Be all over there.
But it is very soothing. Like I really loved the score a lot. Yeah. And the rhythmic thumping of the thumper to attract the sandworms.
Like
I love that.
I was like,
the worms looked great and kind of terrifying.
Yeah, so much more terrifying than basically the moving turd in David Lynch's version.
Yeah, but like also like their teeth, like those it very teeth, much was kind of those teeth. It was giving me like kind of Sarlacc pit vibes, but in a much more sinister, ominous, sleeker way. Yeah, it was great. Yeah. This film looks so So good.
Looks good. Like the only thing, like I said, the only problem I really had with it, and I would even call it a problem because I like movies that are serious. But I mean, this movie is serious.
Yeah, you are so right. I think for me, I kind of liked that it takes itself so seriously because the other adaptations are so wildly divergent from that. So for me, it was kind of nice to see a very different take and kind of a more serious take. But I hear you. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But I was into it. I loved all of the visions. I loved all of the flashes of future memories, that Paul keeps having because he keeps dreaming of Chani and he keeps dreaming of the Fremen and dreaming of everything. And
yeah,
I don't know, it has this kind of like mystical vibe to it that I was totally digging. And I really love the juxtaposition between everything is so gray and shadowy everywhere else except for on Arrakis and his dreams of Chani, and it's all like golden and beautiful and warm. And I just really liked that. I also really liked that Paul is very early on critiquing the Messiah narrative, is critiquing the Savior narrative. And I find that really interesting too, especially because knowing what comes down the line, it's very, very interesting to see. But I really do like that. And I really liked the scene where when he knows his father has died and Jessica is trying to comfort him and he uses the voice to tell her to get away from me. That was just a really striking scene and I really like that. And oh my God, Jessica, I have always found Jessica to be the most interesting character in the entire story. And to see how interesting she is here, I really liked that. The one thing I will say though is that she is, as other Bene Gesserits are as well, she is supposed to be this like fierce warrior and like really able not only to fight but to control her body and to be like incredibly speedy. And I wish we'd gotten fight scenes that kind of reflected that a bit more. But Rebecca Ferguson is so great. And I think what I really like about her performance is Jessica is such a torn woman because she's supposed, so the other thing that we haven't really mentioned is that so the Bene Gesserits can control their bodies and they can control the sex of the child that they're pregnant with. And she's supposed to only have daughters, but she wants to have a son. And because that's what Leto wants. And so she decides to have a son instead of a daughter. But she's really torn about that. And she's also really scared for Paul because he's got to undergo all these tests and he's got a target on his back. And so like, especially in the scene where he is being tested in the box and she's like feeling all of his pain and she's trying to guide him as much as she can, like, even though they're not in the same room, like it's just played so well. Like she plays the pain and grief really well, the fear and the worry of a mother really well, the assertiveness of all the power that she has really well. And I also really love that before Paul is tested, when he's talking to the Reverend Mother and she tells him about how he's a threat because of his power, and he assumes she's talking about his father, and she's like, no, I'm talking about it because you're Jessica's son. You have 2 birthrights and not 1. And the fact that Jessica is such a powerful person and the fact that she's a woman, it's great to see, but I love that.
And also that her name is Jessica, and all the other names in the Leto Atreides, Juso Raban.
Paul's pretty normal.
Paul is pretty normal. It's just like what Evan was saying though about Duncan. You got Duncan Idaho.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you've got, I don't know. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, and maybe you remember this if this is in the book or not, Megan, and please feel free to tell me how Paul. Somebody asks Paul at one point whether the dreams and or visions come true, and he's like, not always. He's like, sometimes they're different. Like sometimes reality plays out differently, and then that happens in a big way at the end when I don't remember the name of the character that he dispatches.
Jarvis, Dramas, something like that.
Yeah, because there's a whole section of dreams that he has where that guy is like schooling him on how to be a Fremen, basically, and the movie ends with Paul killing him. So none of that stuff and like I said, I don't know if this is in the book or not. If none of that stuff happens, so that's just kind of I appreciated that Paul sort of, the David Lynch version kind of makes it seem like all the Paul being the savior, blah blah blah, is preordained, and they bake a lot of doubt into Paul's. He's kind of like a young Jesus in that way.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that it is a critique of the savior narrative, and the book does that too. I love that this film is doing that as well, that he's kind of interpreting his visions, and he might not always interpret them correctly. The other thing too that is not necessarily made clear in the film that you can glean, because it is definitely in the books, is that when you have that kind of precognitive ability, you're seeing multiple possible timelines. You're not necessarily seeing what's definitely going to happen,
right,
because that becomes a very big plot point later on. So yeah, so it could be that he was seeing one possible future, or he could have misinterpreted, maybe Jonas is teaching him how to be a Fremen, but through the death ritual, like the killing. So yeah, so I really love that, because the whole thing is there is no real savior. It's all a machination by the Bene Gesserits, but I love that the film is already critiquing that and kind of playing with that ambiguity. I think it's done really, really effectively.
And this is a Frank Herbert thing. I also like the idea that Frank Herbert was like, I'm going to write a book called Dune. I don't know what it's about, but I'm going to figure it out. And then he did it.
Well, he was inspired by Dune.
Yeah, right. I just, he's like, he was inspired by Dunes. He's like, I should write a novel called Dune. And then he did.
Yeah, well, he found the ecology of them so fascinating. Yeah. And I love that ecology is a huge, huge part of the book, but also in the movie too. It's really nice to see. And I love that Dr. Liette Kynes is gender swapped to be a woman, because she is not a woman in the book. And I love that.
See, I don't remember that. So there you go.
Yeah, character's a dude. And in this, she's a black woman. I love it.
Yeah. And she's actually a Fremen, which of course you know the whole time, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, in the book, she is a he, and it's Chani's father. So I don't know if that's Chani's mother in this.
Oh, interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Man, I don't remember any of that. So maybe I should read the book again, but that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's like, I was, like I said, 11 or 12. I was in 6th grade or something. And like a lot of people were reading it, and because the movie had been out and and I was like, all right. Mm-hmm. And I'd made the mistake of reading The Hobbit, but I was like, no, this is different. It's better. And I don't really remember, I just remember it being dense.
It sounds like it.
It's everything in it is just like, well, I mean, you've basically created an entire world. It's really, this is true science fiction,
Yeah, it's absolute world building. It's language building, because while yes, there are a lot of words that are Arabic, there are a lot that are not, that sound Arabic, but they're totally not. So yeah, so you're 100% right. Total world building, which I love.
So,
but I have to say, I don't know, and I want to know what you think, Dave, about this. I think this film, and it's kind of hard, obviously, to divorce what you know, because like you and I both read the books, we've both seen the other adaptations, but I really feel like this film can stand alone. And I think something it does really great is it doesn't do a ton of exposition. It does a little bit, and I feel like it does enough to kind of explain things if you didn't know the world already. But I also feel like it doesn't hold your hand in everything, which is nice, but it also hints at a much richer world and a much richer mythology, which I really, really appreciated, and that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really appreciated this, and it was, even though like I was saying, it's like, why does the Emperor want to get rid of the House Atreides when the narrative in this is much easier to follow than David Lynch's. I've seen David Lynch's Dune, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. And every time I'm just like, I seriously sometimes have no idea what the fuck is going on. And that's partly because like it's so
that's David Lynch for you.
Well, there's that, but it's also like really truncated. The story is really truncated.
It really is.
And it's just filled with like every character has a voiceover. You've got the princess narrating it, who's not a character in Dune. She's a character from what I understand in later novels, but it's like she writes the history of the war or something like that. Megan, is that?
Yeah, that's Irulan. That's the epigraphs that start each chapter of Dune.
And so,
played by Virginia Madsen.
Right. I think the movie opens up with her giant head, like it's like a huge close up of her against like a space background. But also, like every character in David Lynch's Dune pretty much has like you hear their interior thoughts, and it's so every time I see it, it's so jarring. And in this, there's
definitely a better choice to not do that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I really appreciated that there was a lot more show than tell, although there is some tell.
Yes.
There is some tell. But
I feel like you have to do a little bit of tell, though, because it is so dense,
Yeah.
And it's funny thinking about this and talking about this after seeing it. There's still a lot that's glossed over in this.
Yeah, you would know that better than I would, but there are a few things that I think that will make more sense, and if they make the second one, it'll make more sense.
Yeah,
but who knows? I do actually also. It's interesting that you say you feel like this could stand alone. I do too. It's kind of like this the way the movie plays it out. It's like this part of the story is over. Paul has like journeyed into the desert, and he's just going to go be part of the Fremen, and it could end right there.
Yep.
So
it kind of felt in a way, which I know is going to probably seem like I'm being contradictory, but I'm not. It kind of feels like the Fellowship of the Ring. Like that part of the story is over. They got together, then they disbanded and they went on their way. And like, yes, there's more story to come, but it is, I think, a self-contained film. But I think this is even more self-contained than that. But it just kind of reminded me.
Yeah. I didn't get the same vibe, but you're definitely picking up on something. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I like it. But that's the thing. Like, I felt like I've seen this criticism of the film that it has an abrupt ending. And I was like, I actually don't think it does have an abrupt ending.
I think it's actually kind of drawn out.
Yeah. I think it's actually a perfect ending, because it's like, where else are you going to stop it? Because anywhere else you stop it, you're stopping it too soon, or you're doing it too late and you're shortchanging things. So anyway, I actually think it stops in the perfect spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where else you would stop it. This is the right spot to do it. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say. If you do, please do.
The only thing I will wrap up that I really, really love the performances. Like I said, the cinematography score, great. This looks great. I really felt embedded in this world, and I really enjoyed it. And it was really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm down with all that.
Cool.
Yay. I love that we both loved it.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you both enjoyed it. At some point, I'm sure I'll end up seeing it, but all of this sounded very epic to me.
Yeah, it
oh
is.
my
Given
God.
My entire lack of knowledge of anything Dune related.
Seriously, I'm like, there's still way more stuff we didn't even cover. Like, so much more.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, just in talking about this one film, not even talking about the other adaptations, the book, anything, just talking about what happens in this film.
Yeah. Like, for example, Josh Brolin has a major part in this movie, and we didn't talk about him at all.
Yeah,
no, we didn't. We didn't talk about the assassination attempt on Baron Harkonnen.
That's right. And is that...
Like, there's...
Oh, sorry,
just
go ahead.
so much. No, what were you going to say?
Was that John Magaro as Harkonnen?
No.
Who is that?
No, it's the guy. I can't remember his name. It's the guy from the Suicide Squad.
Oh,
the Polka Dot Man.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Right. And he's in The Dark Knight. Right.
Yes.
And he's in a Wendy's commercial, but that's another story for another time.
Okay. All right. Let's bring it back in here.
Yeah.
So let's recap the movies we talked about today. First is Till Death, which is available on Netflix. See it or don't see it?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd say see it. Like I said, parts I thought were dumb, but still very watchable despite. Knocking, which is currently in theaters and will be available VOD, I believe, on October 19th.
That is correct.
See it or don't see it?
I would say see it.
I'd say see it, but your mileage will vary.
That's fair. I think I would also say see it, despite its slowness, despite my gripes about its slowness. And lastly, Dune, which is going to be out in theaters on the 22nd, October 22nd. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, and also on HBO Max.
It will also be on HBO Max.
Yeah. It's been out in Europe for like 2 weeks. So
Yeah. I unfortunately cannot weigh in here, but it sounds like you both would recommend it.
yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So see Dune when it comes out or on HBO Max. So that wraps up another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. We just want to say a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making us sound great week after week. Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find the show anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also find us at our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, all those places. If you want to get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear from you, you can email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can call us
At 862-21-PEACE.
You can leave us a voicemail. You can, I guess, also text us if you really want to, and tell us we're right, tell us we're wrong, just say hi, all of the above. We love to hear from listeners. So
We do.
Please reach out. And if you like the show, please rate and review us. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. And we would greatly appreciate your ratings and reviews. That helps more people find the show. And that would be awesome. But if you really, really like the show, you should join our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/spoilerpiece. You see a trend here in our URLs. You can sign up to become a patron. You can get exclusive audio each week. This week's segment, as we mentioned, we talk about the horror film You're Next, which was a lot of fun to talk about because we all very much enjoy it. And we're excited to talk about it. You also get access to our back catalog of almost 200 pieces of audio, like bonus episodes where we talk about movies. There's also opportunities to vote in polls where you can pick movies for us to watch. So all that good stuff. So definitely check that out. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd and Instagram as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.